Hello everyone, International Master Matt Bobulas here, and welcome to video series about Tarrasch defense. Today we are going to discuss couple lines when white develops dice square bishop very early in the opening. Okay, so let's start d4, d5. Okay, I'm pretty sure you can recognize that position so far. Okay, c5, and you got the Tarrasch defense. Pawn captures d5, pawn captures. Knight goes to f3, knight goes to c6. And we discussed so far g3 move. We discussed so far e3 move. And we also discussed so far d captures c5 move. So today we are going to discuss two moves with a bishop. So it is bishop f4 and it is also bishop g5. Let's start maybe from bishop f4 move. It's nothing special about that move. The idea is, of course, to put the bishop on the diagonal, but you don't need to be, because some people is afraid of moves like knight b5 and then knight goes to c7, some kind of forks like that. But black usually shouldn't be afraid of that ideas, because after knight b5 there is very good move queen a5, and white has to move back with a knight to c3. So it's not a big threat. So black can just develop like always knight f6. Now white plays e3. Okay, e3, of course it supports d4 pawn, but black has to just finish development, and black prepares castling. Bishop e2, castling of course, and pawn captures at c5. Of course, the idea d captures c5 is to create that isolated pawn at the d5, but black captures with a bishop, and black is not afraid of it. Castling, and now another common idea in Tarrasch, a6. The idea is, of course, like in the previous lines, the idea is to create a space, a7 space for the bishop. So after moves like rook c1, when you can see that there is kind of x-ray and bishop at c5 is not defended, it is a very good idea to make a safe move and just to move bishop back to a7. Usually white plays in that position knight e5, because if white just don't play anything, later black can prepare to play d4 in that position, because you can see that black's attacks it 1, 2, 3 times, right? The d4 square. White usually plays knight e5 here. Rook goes to e8. Rook e8, very common idea. Rook is working very well on that semi-open file. Knight captures c6, pawn captures c6, and black hasn't got that isolated pawn anymore, but black has got another weakness, hanging pawns in the center. This is also a very common, very standard idea for white, to change an isolated pawn into hanging pawns. But after knight a4, black develops bishop to d7, and black's position is quite good. Of course, black has to defend hanging pawns, but on the other hand, black is going to use e-file with rook, maybe in some lines also b-file. Also, black is going to use that diagonal for the bishop, and another common idea, knight goes into the center to e4. So black has got very strong counterplay. Now let's discuss another line. What happens if white plays bishop g5? Of course, queen is under attack. You can see that bishop creates a threat to capture queen. So black has to block it, but it's not a good idea to block it with knight to f6, because you can see that there is very annoying pin in that position, capture at c5, and then remove the defender of d5 pawn, and white can just grab a pawn. So this is very bad idea for black. This is why black should have played bishop e7, knight captures e7, and in that position white has got two ways of playing. One way of playing is just to play e3. Another way of playing is to capture pawn at the c5. Let's start maybe with d captures c5. In that position, of course, there is no dark square bishop that can take it back, but black can use queen, playing queen a5. You just need to know that another interesting move in that position for black is to push pawn to the d4. This is another common idea if it is possible, of course, for black, if white pawn is not at e3, if white captures at c5, black pushes pawn to d4. But standard move is queen a5, and just after e3, black captures that pawn back. Bishop goes to e2, black makes castling. Castling, and rook goes to d8. Black slowly is preparing, what a surprise, d4 move, right? Like very often in that kind of in Tarrasch defense. Rook goes to c1, bishop goes to g4. Bishop at the g4, it also attacks that knight at f3, that is the defender of that d4 square. And you can see that black hasn't got any problems, maybe except this isolated pawn, but that isolated pawn can be also a strength if it moves forward. So this is what happens if white captures at c5 in the move number 8. Now let's discuss what happens if white plays e3. If white plays e3 in that position, black can just capture at the d4. Now castling is not as good because white can capture dc5, and there is a problem to take that pawn back from the c5. So black captures, c captures d4, knight captures d4, castling, white develops bishop, and now important move, queen b6. Queen b6 has got two ideas. First idea is to attack pawn at the b2, pawn is hanging at the moment. Another idea is to make a pressure onto d4 square. So white cannot defend both things, right? So if queen goes to d2, black captures at the d4, pawn captures, and you can see that right now both sides has got an isolated pawn, and pawn structure is very, very symmetric. And of course, black's plan is to attack d4 pawn to defend d5 pawn. Knight goes to f5, rook goes to d1, and bishop goes to e6. And you can see that black also hasn't got any bigger problems in that position. So you don't need to be afraid of that plans with dark square bishop, just need to make couple accurate moves at the beginning, and it's not as strong as this Rubinstein plan with g3. Thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you on the next episode. Bye.